Yes, Pat. We just got some announcements, and I think what I'm going to do is kind of go through the folks that I've heard on the phone and those that I have on the webinar. And if I don't mention their name, then you can let us know. But right now I have Alex Burkholter, Andrew Shanani, Brenda Dennis, David Jones, Julie Holt, Milana Shear, first Pat Melby, Patrick Zhang, Penny Pope, Tim Gurman, and then I know I've heard Jeanette, and I've heard Johnny, Eric, I've heard Patrick and Nina, I've heard John Wagner, we've got Cheryl Cohn, Mary Palkovich, Greg Gould, Paula Loving, Ginger Fancook, Vicki Bauer, Mary Bear, Todd Jackson, Penny Cope. I think I mentioned you twice, Penny. Anyone else that I didn't mention?
Sheila Rice is on the line.
Good morning, Sheila. I think we're doing pretty good. If I would ask you guys, so I don't have to do this, but put your phones on mute if you're not talking. We will not hear whoever was just typing. We will not hear people, and please no hold. Don't put us on hold. That's a no-no. That happened one time, and we don't want it to happen again. And
even though we enjoyed the music.
Well, it was very nice music. And I think I'll forego the bathroom announcement since we all know here where the bathroom is at. Hopefully you do, and where you're sitting. So, and if you're going to address the board, you can do so on the webinar, but you can also just kind of get our attention on the phone call. But please announce yourself and kind of what company you're with. That would be great. So go ahead, Pat.
All right, we'll move on to the agenda, but first, just to confirm that we have a quorum, would the board members who are on the line say their names? I'm here, Pat Melby from Helena.
Jeanette from Hamilton.
Johnny McCluskey from Billings.
Eric Schindler, Helena.
And Sheila is there someplace, I know. As a few seconds have gone by, is there anybody who is on the line that Bruce did not mention? Okay, is there any public comment from anyone who's on the line or at the meeting on any public matter that's not on the agenda but's within the jurisdiction of the Board of Housing? Okay, we'll move on to the minutes of the last meeting, which was when December 18, I guess it was, okay?
December 18.
And is there any board discussion or questions regarding the minutes, any additions or changes? Is there any public comment or questions regarding the minutes? Okay, hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Jeanette, I so move.
Do we have a second?
Eric, second.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the December 18 meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Minutes are approved. We'll move on to operations program. Good morning, Cheryl.
Good morning. This is Cheryl Cohen, Operations Manager with the Board of Housing. In your board packet, you'll see the board agenda item for the request for proposals financial advisor. For a brief background, in December 2018, we issued the request for proposals seeking submissions from qualified financial advisors to provide advisory services. As a reminder, the process were determined by the Montana Department of Administration and State Procurement Bureau to not be subject to the Montana Procurement Act. However, we did issue this RFP publicly on our website and shared it directly with 4 firms with whom we'd had prior discussions or received solicitation, or who we were aware were providing financial advisory services to other HFAs. These firms included King Mitter Associates Incorporated, CSG Advisors Incorporated, PFM Financial Advisors LLC, and Robert W. Baer and Company. We received 2 proposals by the January 18th response deadline from King Mitter Associates and CSG Advisors Incorporated. Included in the board packet is a summary about the award of contract provisions, which you can read at your convenience. We formed a staff selection committee, and each committee member reviewed the submitted proposals and required responses to each RFP element. We met 6 times to evaluate and contrast the proposals, including cost comparison and a side-by-side comparison of over 20 key categories. This was a really difficult decision, and both firms submitted strong and competitive proposals that met the RFP minimum qualifications. The references obtained were equally positive, but the final consensus of our selection committee was that although both firms were clearly qualified and capable of performing the financial advisory services that we were seeking, that CSG Advisors would be a best fit for our organizational needs at this time. And some determining factors for the basis of this recommendation to the board was that their proposal demonstrated their expertise in work product deliverables in the following areas: conducting in-depth level program analysis, engaging clients in risk assessments on long-term strategic planning, and a hands-on approach with financial planning and staff board training. Should the board concur with our committee's recommendation, we suggest that a vote affirming this decision is requested. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Cheryl. Is there any discussion or questions from the members of the board? Is there any comments or discussion from members of the public?
Hey, Pat, this is Bruce. Hey, Dave from CSG is on. I don't know if he has anything to say at all, but if you had any questions for him, he is available.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a representative of CSG Advisors.
Yes, hi, David Jones here. I'll just say appreciate the opportunity to propose and hopefully work with the board. We've been working with state housing finance agencies for several decades, and feel like we can bring both structuring and financial advice, but also programmatic and long-term strategic analysis as well. So we'd love the opportunity to work with the board going forward.
Thank you. Is there any questions of David from members of the board? Hearing no discussion, no questions, the chair would entertain a motion to approve CSG Advisors as our financial advisor.
This is Sheila. I move that we adopt the staff recommendation.
This is Johnny, I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussions or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the staff's recommendation to engage CSG Advisors as our financial advisor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. I guess I should say opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. We can move on to the finance program. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Pat, this is Amber. I just want to clarify that I am on the line.
Good morning, Amber.
Welcome. Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is Ginger Fancook. This is an update. The board packet contains information. It is dated November 30th. It's actually December 31st information. We will be closing out the January month here shortly, so I will get an update out to you as soon as possible. There aren't very many changes. At this point in time, we still have the majority of our investment sitting in money market. The long term is just so volatile that we haven't really put any investments into long term for several months now. And short term is earning less than the money market. So at this point, we're leaving it in money market rather than moving it into the lower yield. As you can see on the weighted average yield trend, that has dropped back down. That drop in December was partially because of the sanctions that the president put into force, and we're hoping that'll come back up as the market recovers from that information. And if you look at the portfolio maturity, you can see that tendency towards the shorter term investments or the amounts that are available now, which include that money market. If you have any questions on any of these figures, please let me know and I'll be glad to answer your questions.
Thank you, Ginger. Is there any board discussion of the financial report or any questions of Ginger? Hearing none, is there any comments or questions from members of the public? Thank you, Ginger. We can move on to the home ownership program. Vicki.
Good morning. The first item on the agenda for homeownership is the approval of the bond resolution for not to exceed $75,000 or $75 million. Sorry. The resolution approves the issuance of fixed or variable rate mortgage revenue bonds to finance loans or to refund bonds previously issued for such a purpose, or both. The resolution is written with the flexibility to be able to be issued under any of the three indentures and to refund bonds from any of the three indentures. The resolution is the same one, similar to the one that was approved for the 2019 A issue, in that the resolution allows for a floating rate note, a variable rate option, and includes the authority to enter into a standby bond purchase liquidity agreement and a remarketing agreement in the case it's needed. As of February 7th, we had just over $16 million left to reserve in the 2019 A issuance, and our current rate is 4.5%. This resolution will allow us to move forward with a new bond deal this spring once the 2019 A issuance is fully reserved. And staff requests the board approve the attached resolution.
Thank you, Vicki. Any member of the board have any discussion or questions of Vicki or RBC or Kutak Rock?
Vicki, this is Sheila, can you explain remarking?
Explain. This is John Wagner. Explain which phrase? Remarketing?
I'm sorry. Yeah, perhaps it was remarketing, but I heard remarket. But whatever that phrase is, if you could give me a little bit more info.
Again, this is John Wagner. A remarketing is when bonds are issued in a variable rate, often in a tender or demand mode, and if bonds are tendered, then they are remarketed to the public. And it's standard in what they call a variable rate demand obligations financings. But it's just basically somebody that you hire to remarket your bonds in case they are tendered to you. Does that explain it?
Yes, John, but I think I need to know now what tendered to you might be.
Oh, okay. You guys have not done a tender type bond since the 1990s, but there are bond structures, particularly with variable rate bonds, where the bondholder is given the option to tender their bond to you, typically on 7 days notice. And then you hire, or you have hired in advance, an underwriter or broker dealer like RBC to remarket any bonds that are tendered to you. So that's what they're talking about. But again, it's a structure that you have not used since the 1990s. It's a structure that's used by many, many other state housing agencies. And I think that's why Bruce is interested in it, because it can provide you with a very low cost source of funds.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Is there further,
Thank you.
is there further discussion or questions from members of the board? Are there any comments or questions from members of the public? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the attached resolution, and I can't see the number.
75 million.
Resolution number 190211 SF01. Do I have a motion to approve?
This is Eric.
So moved. This is Sheila, second.
Who moved that? Jeanette, was
Eric.
that you? Oh, Eric, okay.
No. Yeah.
There was two people there, so we'll take Eric's motion. Is there any further discussion or questions from members of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Vicki, can you talk to us about the Sparrow Group set aside?
Yes. Tim German with Sparrow Group is requesting to set aside for the Sparrow Homes in Pablo. Sparrow Homes 1, which consisted of 18 units, was awarded housing credits in 2001, and Sparrow Homes 2, also 18 units, was awarded housing credits in 2002. Both of the projects were awarded an eventual home ownership, and both properties have completed their 15-year initial compliance period and are able to proceed to home ownership. The owner and management company are working through the process with Mary Bear. The anticipated price of the 32 homes being offered is $135,000 each, with the initial borrowers needing to be below 80% area median income. The set-aside funds are used to provide first mortgages for borrowers earning less than 80% area median income. Many of the set-asides that we currently provide are to borrowers who qualify for down payment assistance from specific providers, such as Home Start, Dream Makers, and nonprofits. Other set-asides are associated with special programs such as the HUD 184 program, or mortgage insurance, or community land trust. Below is a list of the partners or programs that are currently associated with the first mortgage pool. They're programs such as NeighborWorks, the CAP, Northwest Montana Community Land Trust, Missoula Combined HRDC funds, Bozeman District Home Funds, Home Start, Section 8, HUD Section 184 insured loans, Dream Makers, City of Billings, and the Lot Refinance Program. The loans we fund with the first mortgage set-aside pool, they must be insured by FHA, VA, RD, or HUD 184, and the current lending rate on that is 3.75. Staff is requesting that the board approve adding the Sparrow Homes to the first mortgage set-aside pool. Funds are available for this request. And Tim German and Brenda Dennis and Milana Scher are available on the line if there's questions regarding the project or regarding the lending going into the project.
Hello?
I think we were waiting for questions. Does the board have any questions of us?
I would have a question. This is Sheila. I would have a question of Vicki. Have we done a set aside for tax credit to purchase?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I had my phone on mute, and I had asked if Tim had anything he wanted to add to Vicki's narrative regarding this proposal. We haven't heard from Tim for a long time, so I was going to put him on the spot.
Hey, thank you. This is Tim. We're excited about this opportunity. We envisioned it 18 years ago, and now it's coming to fruition. And the whole goal is to give low-income families an opportunity for home ownership. And, you know, my dream is that this would be life transformation for some of the families. Our first goal is to do everything we can to provide the tenants the opportunity, and it's structured to be able to get the tenants living in the homes to be able to qualify for the mortgage without having an increase in their current monthly expenditures. So that's our goal, and we're trying to be as flexible and work with them to get them into the home ownership opportunity.
Thank you, Tim. I'm sorry I had interrupted somebody who was asking a question, but is there any board discussion and or questions regarding this proposal?
This is Sheila. Vicki, have we done this set aside? I'm in favor of it. I just want to check. Did we done this set aside for other tax credit to home ownership projects?
So the only other tax credit to home ownership project that I am aware of is the Felsman, also in Pablo, and we didn't have a specific set aside for it. However, I know a number of those loans were insured by HUD 184, and so they would have qualified for special finance, a special rate on those as well.
And then for Tim, I'm always interested in long-term affordability, and I wondered if you considered structuring this sale of properties within the land trust model, which would ensure that those homes remained affordable forever.
I had not, because I'm trying to provide opportunities for the tenants that are there, and it's a different structure, and it's outside the land trust. It just provides an opportunity for these tenants to move into home ownership, or other. If the tenants choose not to do it, then we open it up to low-income families at or below 80% of the area median income.
And I appreciate that, Tim, and I don't think a land trust structure, although it would complicate your sale, I don't think it would do anything other than that. It would probably make it more capable for those particular homeowners. What do you think the market value of these homes is? Is it about the same as what you're selling them for?
The initial appraisal that we had done was was looking at the work. We're going to rehab each of the units, put in new appliances, new flooring, new cabinets, and anything else that needs to be done. And it was estimated that the value between $135 and $145. And that was about a year ago. So
once the families purchase these homes, they're basically on the open market, and they can sell them for any price that the market will bear any time in the future, including a month after they purchase it if they choose to.
That's correct.
Okay.
But that was how it was structured. That was how it was structured in the tax credit program, and we've met the obligations of the tax credits. So they have. That's why I'm saying this is an opportunity for the people who live there and have lived there. We have a couple tenants that have been there for 15 plus years.
And that's so wonderful to hear, and I think this is a great opportunity for people to enjoy the benefits of the equity building process of home ownership. I would just want to comment to the board. I'm going to vote for this motion, but I'm going to comment to the board that the value of the land trust model would be that just as we require rentals now to have 35 or 40 or 45 or even longer periods of affordability, the land trust model would do this with this home ownership. So it's kind of the best of all worlds. So I don't think there's anything we can do at this juncture with this property. We should go ahead and support this motion. But I do think we should look carefully at any future projects that are structured as rental to ownership and see if there's something we can do there that would be a shared equity model where the homeowner would certainly have a chance to build equity, but at the same time, the home would remain affordable through a sales formula.
Thank you, Sheila. I think those are good comments. Is there any other discussion or questions from members of the board? Is there public comment or questions from members of the public? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion and a second on this proposal.
So moved.
Is that Sheila?
Sorry, it was Amber.
Oh, thank you, Amber.
And Jeanette was second.
Okay, is there any further? Thank you, Jeanette. Is there any further discussion or are there any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, Vicki, you can give us a program update.
Next item in your board packet is the homeownership program dashboard. On it, I outlined the reservations that we received in January. I will tell you that January was a little bit slower than December and November had been. I think between the new year and the weather and the market, things were just a little slower, but we continued to do business. And as of the end of January, we had 16.9 million. Now that's down to 16 million in the 2019 A series. The changes in portfolio are outlined for you there in the middle of the dashboard. It includes showing the number of purchases throughout the month of December, payoffs, and we had no foreclosures in the month of December. The delinquency rates and foreclosure rates on the portfolio continue to fare well against the Montana, the regional, and the national percentages. And the December portfolio, broken down by both number and dollar amounts, are on the second page of the dashboard. And I'm happy to point out that last year, last December 2017, we did have closer to 5,000 loans on the books, and we had a really good year last year, and we saw that increase up to just over 5,500 loans. We continue to do some lender and public outreach. January was a little bit tighter on the trainings that we offered because Julie spent a lot of our time helping with loan review and purchasing. Danielle Bauer, one of our loan reviewers, her last day was February 5th, and so we were working hard to get files done, purchased up before her final day, and we are currently recruiting for her position. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Vicki. Are there any questions of Vicki or any discussion regarding the homeownership program?
Pat, this is Eric. Pat, this is Eric. I noticed on
Eric, go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry. I noticed on the home ownership program dashboard that the Board of Housing rate is higher than the market rate, and that may be leading to some of the slowdown. But has that happened in the past, and how do we respond to that?
It has happened in the past, and we just keep an eye on the rate. You know, in the month of January, and this is February 1st rate actually, and it was there was such a fluctuation in the rate right there at the end of January. We saw it dip down, and the rate that our loans are currently set on is based on the pricing of the last bond deal that we did. Our response to that is we keep an eye on it, and we try not to respond too quickly, because then So lenders kind of get used to a set rate. They start working with borrowers early, and we try to keep the rate as consistent as we can. And however, if we do see it stay where we're not getting a lot of loans in, we will talk to Mina and Patrick and determine whether or not we can adjust that rate down to pick up production again, or up in cases when the market's on an upturn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Eric, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, Pat.
All right. Oh,
Pat,
somebody else had a. Yes,
yeah,
Sheila.
this is Sheila. Thank you, Pat. Vicki, as a request from a board member, I'd like to see a list of any other tax credit deals from the past that were structured as rental to home ownership. So I think if we started working with those developers early, we might be able to move some of these into the land trust model. Possibly Trust Montana could take a crack at it or something like that. I'd just like to see the list of the developers and the number of units, where they're located, and when the 15 years will be up.
Okay.
Sheila?
Good idea, Sheila. Vicki, you can do that.
This is Bruce. So we will provide that list. Just an FYI up front, all of our other homeownership tax credit projects are on reservation and are sponsored by the housing authorities. So I believe most of them are actually on fee or trust land. So they're a little bit different, but we will be happy to provide that for you.
Okay, Bruce, would you make that notation on that list so that we know which of those projects are on trust land, et cetera?
We'll get it out to you this week.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or board discussion regarding the homeownership program? Do we have any comments or questions from members of the public? Thank you, Vicki. We can move on to mortgage servicing.
Good morning. This is Mary Palkovich. Good morning, members of the board and Mr. Chair. My update is on the loans that we are servicing for Montana Board of Housing, and we do continually have an increase. We have approximately 5,100 loans that we are servicing now, combining Board of Housing, Board of Investments, and multifamily loans. About $488 million, and the escrow amounts about $4.8 million. And our loss drafts do continue to decline as we work those. And we have loans delinquent, about 165, increased a little bit over last month, typical for the holidays, such as the delinquent phone calls to make. That usually is increased in January as well. Actual foreclosures in January were 2. We had 0 in December, and we have possibly 1 this month in February, which I believe it may cancel. So the foreclosures do continually go down. And then as far as late fees, 767 at approximately $21,500 for fees, and payoffs 34. And new loan transfers, we have 132 loans. Out of those 132 loans, 50 were purchased from the Bank of the Rockies. And then also we are continuing the tier score of an A, grade A, tier 1 at 95.09%. And with our loss mitigation, we've had 3 active financial packets. I believe last year about this time it was about 26. So we are seeing definitely a decrease in the financial packets. Repayment plans and forbearances are seeing a bit of an increase for those. And short sale or deed in lieu, we do not have any at this time. We do have 2 HAMPs, partial claims pending, 6 preservation properties, and 7 are REO. And then in bankruptcies, increasing slowly, but we have 23 bankruptcies. That's pretty much it. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Mary. Is there any are there any questions or discussion from members of the board regarding the mortgage servicing program? Are there any comment or questions from members of the public? Thank you, Mary. We can move on to multifamily.
Good morning. Good morning. This is Mary with multifamily. We have a RAM exception today. This is a male that's 72 years old in Yellowstone County is seeking an exception for $50,000 to pay off a Montana Board of Housing mortgage and make repairs to the home. His annual income is $9,960. That income will rise by $380 a month with this loan, as that is his mortgage payment amount. And we would propose that the board consider and approve this exception.
Okay, is there any comments or questions from members of the board regarding this RAM exception? Hearing none, do we have any comments or questions from members of the public? Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to approve this exception.
Jeanette, I move approval of the RAM exception.
Thank you, Jeanette. Is there a second?
This is Eric. I second.
Thank you, Eric. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion, or are there any further questions regarding this RAM exception? Hearing none, all those in favor of the exception signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Mary, program update.
Okay, you do have an updated dashboard, and I think I told you at the December meeting, but we closed 3 bond deals, conduit deals, in the late part of the year, and 2 loans. And I did make a mistake, or forgot to correct, under the bond program, the conduit is 2006 to 2018. We now have 11 of those bond deals for $57,250,000. And then at the end of your dashboard, there is an update on compliance, and it's physical non-compliance that's still outstanding from last season. One of them is Blackfeet in up on the Blackfeet. We had several physical non-compliance up there, and that site visit took place in August, and we have not, sorry, my list is, I'm thinking, that was in August, and we have virtually not heard anything from the Blackfeet since that time. Central Court, we're going through a qualified contract process with them. There's some outstanding non-compliance on that one from March, and that qualified contract period doesn't start until the project is 100% in compliance. Meridian Point in Kalispell, that one was also in August. That's sidewalks. They asked for an extension till spring. Fort Peck, there's some flooring issues up there. That one was also in August. And Big Sky 1 and 2, which are up at Big Sky, those properties were sold to an out-of-state firm, and that was in November. So we have several non-compliance issues hanging out there for a long time.
And I apologize on your board packet. Things are really chopped up in there, so we'll do better on getting this thing organized for you next time.
Thank you, Bruce. I was getting dizzy with the page going up and down.
Yeah,
Down,
I couldn't
down.
figure out where it was, so sorry about that.
That's all right. Is there any, are there any questions from the board or discussion regarding the program update?
So this is Jeanette. Hey, Mary. So when the Blackfeet don't even respond to you, what are your steps then? What next steps do you take?
Well, part of this is that Chansey is no longer there. But we virtually have heard nothing. I spoke to Travoy when I was in DC in January, and they are trying to get some stuff done on the non-compliance up there. They're a consultant on that, and they still are working through them through the extended use period.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It just like we ought to have some recourse, but I don't know what it would be. But just putting that out there for your consideration.
Yeah, well, there are 8823s that have been sent in, and somebody should have received something from the IRS on that. We send them the 8823s also, but.
Thanks, Mary.
Yep.
Are there any further questions or discussion from members of the board regarding the multifamily program update? I have something I'd like to mention. I guess it was inevitable that with the, just a second here, gotta hang up this phone. Sorry, the landline is ringing. It was inevitable that with the competition that we are seeing with multifamily low-income housing tax credits, that we're going to start seeing ad hominem attacks. And we have seen that now both from a couple legislators out of Missoula who emailed the governor and basically made the suggestion that board members were not selecting projects based on their qualifications, but rather on their hometowns. And the latest, I guess, is a personal attack against Bob Gochi, claiming with the claim that he has an interest in the Ronan project. And I guess I just want to suggest to board members that you contact your legislators in from your particular area and explain, if it's possible, just how difficult it is to allocate these low-income housing tax credits, and maybe perhaps also contact Senator Steve Fitzpatrick, who I believe is the chair of the Senate State Administration Committee, and any other senators you may know on that committee, to assure them that Bob is a person of the highest integrity and he does not have an interest in that Ronan project. Those are my thoughts. I don't know if anybody else has any comments on that or not. If not, we can move on to public comment or questions regarding the multifamily program.
This is Jeanette, and I'm just curious as to when does that administrative committee meet or make its decision or whatever is next in its process?
Well, it was only a couple days ago. Bruce can explain. It was only a couple days ago, I believe, that Senator Fitzpatrick moved to separate Bob's confirmation for reappointment to the board from those of, was it Jeanette and Sheila, Bruce, or maybe you can explain.
Yeah. And I'll walk through the bills, but generally LC 3259 has not been introduced yet, so we'll wait for it to get introduced. And Bob has said that he would like to come to the hearing, which is great, and just have a real good discussion with the committee on, number one, that he has absolutely no conflict, and then number two, the good work that the board does and educate the committee and the members, kind of on how this all works. So in some respects, of course, not all, but some respects, it is actually an opportunity that we can use. So.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
Did the phone calls come from Missoula, Bruce, that kind of introduced this thing?
It really, I don't believe know if it was a phone call, the comment that the chairman made that he had heard comments, and that was all that was said. So,
well, yes, the comments to the governor's office did come from Missoula.
Those did. I'm sorry.
There were two Missoula legislators.
The ones to the governor's office were, I really don't know as far as the chairman of Senate Business, Labor, and Economic Affairs, but you can make your answer.
I have a strong suspicion that that's out of Missoula as well. I might add that when the initial email came to the governor's office from the Missoula legislators, I called several of our largest partners in Missoula. I spoke with Drea Davis and Jim Morton, and neither of them had been contacted by any legislator or anybody else about this issue or this allegation that board members were favoring their hometowns over qualified projects. So obviously this is coming from some narrow area in Missoula and not from our major partners there. All right, I guess that's enough of that. I just want to get that off my chest. Are there any questions or comment from members of the public regarding the multifamily program update? All right, Bruce, we can go to Executive Director Program.
Awesome. So just the first thing, Cheryl, why don't you come up? The first thing I'm going to start off with is kind of the last thing on there, and I'm going to pull over the website for bills because it just changes so quickly. And I'm going to walk down just a few of the bills that we're looking at. House Bill 16, that's the one that takes $15 million out of coal trust and allows the board to loan that money. Has passed out of the House and is in the Senate. It's referred to the Senate Tax Committee, so we should see a hearing on that shortly. House Bill 376 is a companion with House Bill 416, and it's kind of through the realtors. Right now, there's a real estate recovery account held with the Board of Realty that can help with kind of, errors and omissions type thing. House Bill 476 is going to require realtors to have insurance for that. So the account that they keep for that, they want to direct that money to the Housing Montana Fund and any annual collections for that. Generally, there's about $400,000 in the account right now that would transfer, and then probably about $15,000 a year that would go to the Montana Fund from that. We have House Bill 422, Ed Buttrey, as a hearing tomorrow. In appropriations, that would add another $10 million to the Veterans Home Loan Program, so we'd be up to $50 million for that. Senate Bill 15 was tabled quite a while ago, so that's no longer in play. Senate Bill 18, which is the state tax credit, had a hearing in Senate Tax. It had a really good educational session for the committee, and they've yet to take action on it. SR 15 was the bill where Sheila and Jeanette were confirmed. So it's returning from enrolling and almost final. And then there's just a few LCs out there that I probably won't go into at this point. I mentioned LC 3259, which will be Bob Gochi. So we'll let you know that it hasn't been introduced. When it does, it'll get a hearing, and then we'll let you guys know about that. So with that said, any questions on bills?
Bruce, this is Sheila. I just think it's really good that we be very careful about how we describe the House Bill 16. It does not take money from the coal trust. It allows investments. It allows investments to be made from coal tax funds into workforce housing. I just think you have to be really careful that nothing comes out. It's a loan just like other investments that the Board of Investments might make.
This is Pat. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it allows the Board of Housing to invest $15 million of coal trust into housing. Is that more appropriate, Sheila?
Correct. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention that LC 3018 by Nate McConnell is kind of a hammer over our heads. He was one of the legislators who contacted the governor's office, and I'm not sure what he intends to do with that, but that's generally what you see by a legislator when he wants to put some pressure on a state agency. Okay, Bruce. Anything else?
The positive thing on that one is it is on hold, but it can come off hold in a minute.
Yeah, that's at the discretion of the legislator.
Yeah. Any other comments on legislation? We'll keep you guys updated in the dashboards and whatnot. So,
Pat, what was that bill that you had talked about initially? 22. What is that? What you said? Did you say LC
3259? Is that the one on Bob?
Yeah, LC 30. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
LC 3018 is the generally revised Board of Housing laws. That's the Nate McConnell. LC 3259 is the bill for Bob Goche and his confirmation.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Bruce.
Okay, Cheryl, why don't you?
Sure. So I just had a few more updates on the top of the February 2019 operations dashboard. A reminder that the next board meeting will be Monday and Tuesday, May 20th and 21st in Helena at the Delta Marriott Hotel. We'll be hearing the housing credit letters of intent on Monday, and the board will be deciding which projects to move forward to full application on Tuesday morning. There's a list of some out-of-state board member training, but we have an in-state board member training April 4th and 5th, our financial training in Bozeman at the Spring Hill Suites by Marriott. And we'll be working with CSG advisors to hopefully bring them in for that training as well.
Just to comment on that, at this point, we're not planning on having a board meeting at that time, but it is always an option that we may need to if there's something that comes up. So just FYI.
On staffing, Vicki already mentioned that they're in the process of hiring for a mortgage loan compliance program specialist. Applications were due last Thursday, and Vicki and Charlie moved really quickly on getting that position posted when we heard when Danielle gave her departure, so that's fantastic. We already talked about the financial advisor. Now that we've received the board approval, we'll be working on executing a contract with CSG advisors. In September 2018, we contracted with a consulting firm to complete an assessment of our single-family program's internal processes. The list of those consultants' recommendations has proven to be really beneficial. And so we are going through a full procurement cycle to expand that work. An RFP was listed through the state of Montana's procurement EMAC system on February 1st and is scheduled to close on February 26th. And finally, we continue to work on our GSE seller servicer approval plan with our work group meeting bi-weekly, and we're still planning on resubmitting to Fannie Mae in June and still working on becoming Freddie Mac approved.
All right. So just, I think the final thing to take note of, we need to fix up in the notes for April. The 4th and 5th meeting is not noon from noon anymore. It's actually, we'll start, I think, probably 8:39 on Thursday morning, the 4th. We'll go all day. We'll have CSG there along with Mina and QTAC and, of course, Luxon. And we're going to do some real good financial training. We'll go into Friday morning, probably not a long morning at all because folks are going to need to catch flights, but we're going to work on doing some more long-term strategic planning and maybe preparing for our September meeting, which we currently have scheduled in Lewistown. So after that, I think we're done.
Sorry for taking so long. I had to unmute my line. All right. Is there any board discussion questions regarding the executive director's update? Is there any comments or are there questions from members of the public? Hearing none, we are finished. So the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Sheila.
Second, Jeanette.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 If anybody would like to stay on the line, say same sign. All right, thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, thanks, guys. We'll talk to you in April. Bye.
Okay, have a good one.
All right.
Bye.
All right,
Bye-bye.
stay warm.
Yeah.
Bye.